Exploring the human journey.
My name is Jeroen de Wit. I'm a level 3 quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioner. I was trained back in 2006 by the famed Dolores Cannon, and I've been merrily past life regressioning ever since. My name sounds a little funny because I'm from the Netherlands, but I'm based in Los Angeles. For the first part of my life, I felt very, very insecure, and I didn't really know how to create a life that suited me, that felt good to me. I had my spiritual awakening in the late 90s, and it stripped me of whatever I had believed reality was about up until then. So I needed to learn to love myself, and in the process of doing this, I accessed many different healing modalities and lots of therapy. It has been a journey from disempowerment and unworthiness and codependency and love addiction to where I'm now feeling more empowered and more joyful and self-expressed, and I feel confident about creating and living the life that suits me. Through my own journey, I started helping people do the same thing for themselves, to feel more authentic, to feel more empowered, and to feel more confident by using regressions into different lifetimes. We all have questions about life. We might be looking for meaning, or we might be stuck in a place that feels uncomfortable. QHHT is different from traditional hypnosis in that it uses the somnambulist state of trance, which is the level of trance where we can get healing and answers from our own soul. We'll sit down in this comfortable space, and first we'll have a conversation about your life. From the very beginning up until today, we'll touch on all the important events. Then we'll go over your questions as well, and then we'll get you comfortable on a comfortable padded massage table. And then we'll go into the session. We'll do an induction first, and that'll take you to the space within your own consciousness where you have access to the answers that you're here for. It's not me or your conscious mind, but this higher self that provides you with the most appropriate healing and answers for you at this day.
Those of you that know me know there's nothing I like more than the inward journey of the soul. My two favorite things are ayahuasca and hypnotherapy. So this is my dear friend Hoon, and he's a trained facilitator, a QHHT, trained by Dolores Cannon herself. So I thought, what better thing to do than to talk about hypnotherapy with someone who's an expert. So dude, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Nothing more that I love to do than talk about the stuff that I do and Dolores Cannon.
Yeah. So Dolores is one of the foundational people that did hypnotherapy and kind of got it going. Michael Newton was kind of my big introduction into what is the spirit world about. Journey of Souls has been my favorite book for the past several years. And then matriculating through hypnotherapy, YouTube searches, I'm like, oh, Dolores Cannon's another big thing. And, you know, for me, having a religious narrative saying you get one life and then there's some sort of a judgment, when I undid that and I went, wait, there's something other going on here. Hypnotherapy was so important to me. And it was like, oh, there's a journey. You're a soul. You're a spiritual being, human experience. So I'm fascinated when you do a hypnotherapy session as a facilitator, you hear so many things. And then it doesn't just, is it a past life? Are they real? Are they not? It goes beyond that. You're like, oh, what planet were you on? They're like, oh, I was on a different planet. Tell me how your passion for this got started. You know, where was your hunger point to where you got into, I've got to find out more about hypnotherapy?
I love that question. So I'm from the Netherlands, and
as evidenced by Hoon.
Yeah, it's Jeroen actually.
Jeroen.
Yeah, Jeroen,
you say it better than me.
It's a tricky name. So it's very common where I'm from, but yeah, over here it's just weird. So
is it like John or something? You know,
it's like Jerome.
Jerome.
Yeah,
sure.
The Dutch version of Jerome. Anyway, so yeah, I just remember as a little kid just being in this physical world and always looking for other realms. I think I retained some kind of vague memories of another place, because I was always looking back now as an adult, I was always looking for other realms. I was very much into fantasy and fairy tales, and when we would go for a walk, I was always looking for the little chairs and tables in the hollows of trees where the gnomes and the fairies were. I was just like, where is this world? I'm looking around and I can't find it.
Yeah, the magical mysticals.
Yes. And so I was raised in church for a little bit as well as a Catholic, and that is not where I found any of that. It was just very dry and very boring. As a kid, there was no celebration, no feeling of spirit. So my life turned into a search for a tangible experience of the realm of spirit, because I kind of knew that it was out there. I couldn't have articulated this as a kid. I just remember looking always for proof of existence from other realms.
Yeah.
And the approximation of it I found in reading, fairy tales and fantasy and science fiction. And then
well, even in that fantasy realm, I mean, even in your backyard, it has the feel of a magical fairy tale land.
Yes.
I mean, this is just a beautiful space you've created.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Here, right.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like I should see a gnome hiding behind a tree. You know?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm totally renting this, so it was already here, but I picked it because it had the trees in the backyard.
Well, there's a vibration here. It feels good.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
And so you've been drawn to that.
Always.
You wanted to see that mystical and magical.
Always drawn towards it. As a kid, I just remembered that I was... my dad used to be an altar boy, and so I would look at the pictures of saints and of Jesus with the golden halo, and I was like, there's something about this. There's this feeling of otherness or mysticism, even though I completely couldn't find it in the doctrine of it. But there was something that that gave me a certain feeling of expansion and joy and like spirituality, maybe, looking back at it, but not sustained. It was just like little snips and little bits and pieces until I was 8 years old, and my mom was a librarian for a bit, and she would bring me the fantasy books and the science fiction until I read everything, and then I started to explore what landed on her nightstand. And I found a book by what is his name now, from the Monroe Institute. Nelson Monroe, is that his name? Nelson?
I don't know him.
Somebody Monroe of the Monroe Institute, and it described out-of-body experiences. Oh. So as an 8-year-old, there I was on my bed with my flashlight. I wasn't supposed to be reading after my bedtime.
Instead of Batman or Superman or Spider-Man, you're reading out-of-body experiences.
Yes, no, this was the real deal for me.
That's charging you.
Yes, so I read about people leaving their body and traveling through different astral planes and meeting different beings and being in the state of energy rather than being in a physical. And I just knew this was true. I just knew it. And to the point where I was afraid to close my eyes and just start floating out of my own body. So that was one marker where I found something outside of myself that resonated with what I somehow knew. And then there was kind of a desert of those experiences until I went through what I call my spiritual awakening, and it was a very harrowing experience after going through Landmark. It kind of stripped me from everything that I had based my
Landmark is so good.
I mean, it's a tool.
I'm not saying it's the best ever, but there is something that opens your eyes up into a spirit realm. Now, they go off in their direction.
Yes.
But it starts something.
For me, it definitely did. Like, it ripped the rug from underneath me. It completely made my fragile sense of self fall apart. And
I found out about my stories. I'm like, oh, I guess that's what, for me, Landmark was good, because, all those ideas I have, they're just stories I've created.
Yes. For me, it went even deeper, to the point where I learned that any meaning that I derived about myself or about life was from the external.
Correct. Yeah. That's so good.
I mean, anything and everything. Yeah. So when that was ripped from underneath me, I thought I was going crazy. It was a very harrowing experience where I had completely left my body. I went to a healing. He said that I was barely like hanging on the sixth chakra. I was completely out of the body from the shock of it all.
And was that a facilitator doing something in Landmark, or was that
No, this was after. No, I completely, the last day of Landmark, everybody's jubilant, and I was like, what the fuck is going on?
I was messed up.
Yes, I felt crazy, and I didn't have the capacity to deal with people that would have these experiences.
Yeah.
And so I needed to figure this out myself, and so I pulled in these healers that came into my path, thank God, that helped me to start to understand my own journey. And bit by bit, I learned to incarnate, put my energy back inside of my body. And what was happening is that I was learning to love and embrace all these different aspects of myself that I wasn't taught to embrace and taught to love. Because a big part of who I am is very different from what goes on in this world. And this is the work that I do now. I help other people to embrace who they are, to understand who they are past the limited confines of what we have been taught about what it means to be human.
Yes.
So
to that point, give a little bit of framework. There's many people who don't know anything about hypnotherapy, and they're just like, what, is that the watch thing, and you see time spinning or whatever? No. You get to go into a space that's an inward journey.
Yes.
I love that you don't do things to people. They have their own inward journey. You just help guide them.
Yes.
So kind of give some presence to hypnotherapy and how you practice.
Sure. So I practice Dolores Cannon's method, which is different from traditional hypnotherapy. Traditional hypnotherapy, to my understanding, is programming of the conscious mind. The method that I practice is about calling forth your inner knowing, the truth of who you are, your higher self. We call it the subconscious mind. So it is going past the limited beliefs of the conscious mind and delving into the soul, and to give it the floor and to let it tell us about what is the metaphysical backstory to your life. Why are certain things happening? Why do we face these challenges? What is it all for? And the beauty of it is that, what I'm experiencing in my work is that we live in a benevolent universe. That even through all the challenges that we all face in our world, from the small to the big horrors, it is all ways for our soul to come here and learn the things or remember the parts of us that we came in to learn. We're not victims. Even if people talk about prison planets and stuff, our soul opted into this experience, even if, I don't know if you've heard about the prison planet.
I have heard people talk about that. I don't have a whole lot of context about it. It sounds...
Yeah, so I
don't want to go there.
Yeah, no, I know. So even if that's a thing, say if it's real, it's still our soul, as part of God, came here to do life as you, to face the limitations and to learn what it's like to be who you are. Like being experiencing friction or experiencing contact with the limitations. This is how we get to find out who we are. There's no other place or no other dimension in the universe where we get to do this. We came to the 3D as advanced souls to do this. This is not for the faint of heart. And so it is only through the duality that we learn very particular things about us as spiritual beings that we cannot learn anywhere else.
Good.
And so all the challenges that we face here, they are part of the journey. They're opted into by our soul, not from a human perspective, because people tell me all the time, but I'm going through this horrible experience. I don't want this. This is not good. It doesn't feel good from the human perspective, but from the soul's perspective, there are no victims, only volunteers. Yeah. So with the hypnosis, we go straight to the core. We go past the chatter of the conscious mind, and then we get to find out who you are and why you're here.
Yeah.
And that gives you a true north in this life. It can unveil. Is that how you say it?
Unveil.
Unveil.
Sure, yeah.
What kind of path you're on. And so that places your challenges in a more compassionate perspective. To know that the things that you're going through, that you can be empowered by them, by learning to love yourself through these experiences. Does that make any sense?
Isn't that the most important thing ever, is to learn to love yourself?
Yes.
You chose to come here. And that's the biggest thing I've got out of hypnotherapy. You choose to come here. You pick your parents, you pick your body, you choose to come here.
Yes.
You were somewhere else and now you're here. Well, how come I can't remember it? Whew. Well, we have an amnesia, so we can have a free slate with which to create.
Yes.
Because if I remembered that I killed you in a last life, this time I'd be like, oh, I'm really sorry. The whole time you'd be like, dude, why are you always like that? I felt bad. So we can't have that. And likewise, if you killed me, I'd be like, motherfucker, the whole time, well, we can't have that.
Yeah.
So we're playing these characters. Well, what is it that I wanted to have to learn and experience this time?
Yes.
And I love that.
Yeah, and it's not because we're stupid or we're, it's like punishment from the universe that we don't remember. It is we can't play the game if we know what the rules are or what the kind of game we're in or where it's going to go. Then you're going to just sit on your ass and say, I know it all. Why would I go in? It's like the spoiler alert,
Yeah. I have watched a sporting event and then had it on a DVR and then went backward in time because someone else came in the room, wanted to watch it, and I'm like, oh, this must be what God feels like. This is super boring. I already know who's going to score and what's going to happen.
Right.
So it's like that.
Yeah. No, you got to be in the experience to really get to know who you are in the doing of it instead of just thinking, living lives through your thoughts. Yeah, you got to be in it and experience it.
So 8-year-old you has this out-of-body interest. You get to adult you do a landmark thing, you have something happens to where you're like, and then you have energy healers. So pick back up, then where are we going?
Yes, come on, thank you. So yeah, I needed to access healing for myself first to feel like I could be on the planet, to feel good about myself. And in accessing this healing work, I found this interest that I have. I felt the empowerment inside of myself. And as I was learning, I was getting healed, I was facilitating Reiki to other people as well, and I saw other people's healing processes, and they were so specific and so beautiful that I just knew that this is what I wanted to do.
Was that Reiki touching or not touching?
It was touch.
Because some people do Reiki above and some people physically touch.
Yes. Yeah, it's both works. What I learned was touch. So
give a small amount of presence for somebody who never heard. It's R-E-I-K-I, Reiki work.
Yes.
Give just a little bit of presence for that.
So it's hands-on healing, it's energy healing. So this is something that's innate to all of us. It's channeling life force that is part of what we all are. It's the same thing as stubbing your knee or your toe and you put your hand on it. That is applying Reiki. Reiki is a Japanese word for life force or intelligence or intelligent love, something like that. And people that study it, they create a stronger channel to channel this, and you can apply it to yourself and to others for healing. So this is part of my healing journey, and it turned me on to wanting to do this for other people. So I was doing Reiki for a while, and then looking into other healing modalities. And I was at somebody's office in Amsterdam, and there was a book with a little alien on the cover, and it said custodians. I was like, oh, interesting. So I started leafing through it. It was a book by Dolores Cannon, and there was even a bigger picture of the knowledge that I saw in that book by the Monroe Institute. And my mind was blown in the sense of, well, this lady knows what I feel like I know, but I didn't know that I knew.
So now we're at that vibrational resonance again.
Yes.
Something's leading and guiding.
Yes, like excitement and joy and interest. And, I got to tell you, I wasn't doing so well in this world. I was always flunking school. I didn't like school. Everything that was normal to other people, I couldn't do because it just felt horrible to me. I felt captive and dim and dense. I was always the one that was on the outside. I couldn't, I'm gay, I'm genderqueer. I never fit in. I looked at society from the outside in. And so when I found this book by Dolores, it just, the resonance was there.
Yep.
So I went online, found out where she was teaching, and she was teaching in the Netherlands at the time. And this was the first class ever that I took where I was completely locked on target. I was absorbing her being, her knowledge, everything. I was completely interested.
You felt like you were in a home space, probably.
Yes, yes, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, when I hear the soul journey work, it's just like, oh, finally. Because I was given another narrative that said you're unworthy and you have to, have redemption. And now I'm like, oh, I'm not unworthy. I am worthy. I'm fine just the way I am. Nothing bad is waiting for me on the other side of this life. Something only good. And, oh, wait, what is this? The Maya? This is the illusion? This is the Leela, the cosmic game? Oh, I'm a character playing a game. What? I wrote this? I'm the director, writer, producer, and the main character? What? so much better. So much better.
It's empowering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because then your experiences become your own story. It doesn't become something that's happening to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So much victim culture is about, it's not fair. Hey, I didn't ask to be born.
Yeah.
Hey, I didn't do it. Hey, this isn't my fault. Something bad happened. It's not my fault. And you learned out, maybe you made a contract with this person to have something interaction that is uncomfortable and that you have to work through.
Yeah.
So part of your work is getting people to have this inner journey. Now, I got to do a hypnotherapy session with you. It was phenomenal. And one little fun thing that I learned is you go look down at your hands and your feet, and I'm like, oh, I'm a cobblestone, and oh, I'm like a fancy lad, and I go into this factory and I have a briefcase, and there's a smokestack, and it looks Londonish, 1800s or something around, turn of this 1900 century, and I got some little derby on and whatever. It's kind of that old-timey thing. And I go up and I'm in some textile factory overlooking. And apparently I've taken over my father's business and he's passed. And I had a secretary that would bring me coffee, but I don't have a significant other. And then I'm bored. And you go, well, what is it that you wanted to do? And I go, I'll never forget, I go, I wanted to race bicycles. I'm like, what the hell? And I remember hearing myself say that going,
where does that come from?
Why would I want to race bicycles? And then the conscious mind is over in the corner going, oh, hey, that would have been around the turn of the century, and that would have been when bicycles were coming across. And I'm like, oh, easy, I'm having my session, let me relax. And so you go, well, and so then I see an image of me on this red old-timey bicycle kind of going through maybe like one of the first Tour de France's, and I wanted to race bicycles. It was a passion, but I got stuck in the family business. And then you go, have your subconscious tell me, what do you think that means? And I go, I think it means that I wanted to do something, but I had to do what the obligations were. I had to take the family business, and so I felt bored and stuck in this role. And then how does that apply to your life now? And do I feel bored or stuck in my life now? Am I a person that is dutiful and does certain things? And then it just leads, and I'm like, oh. And so then someone says, well, was that real or not? I don't know if the visual imagery was a real experience or not, but I know the message was real and it applies to this lifetime. And so that's when I'm like, oh, this hypnotherapy thing, whether or not all of the woo stuff, is a credible, valid experience, the inward journey is so important, because then you go, well, what's my lesson? Yeah.
And there's to me, there's the experience of truth. It's not just a concept, it's an actual experience. So it's also the journey of learning to trust that. And that's what takes place within this process. That it's not, there's benefits to going to a psychic or a medium. They tell you about stuff and it resonates. But within this journey, you get to be in the experience. You learn to experience it as you. So there is this texturedness or expansiveness to the truth that you're experiencing because you're in it. You get to experience it through your inner senses. So that, to me, grounds it as it anchors it as an innate truth to yourself, which to me is so empowering.
Yeah. Because
you learn to navigate life based on what is true for you instead of what you have been conditioned to do, to fit in, to be approved of, to find your worthiness through fitting all the boxes or ticking all the boxes that are given to us as we're being brought up in this world.
Such a good point, because I've had someone in the psychic realm say, oh, in a past life you were this, this, and this, and in the future you're going to do this, and I'm like, okay, I don't know, who knows, right. Are they making it up, is it real, I don't know, is
right.
it, and then the thinking mind goes, do they want me to have more sessions so they get paid money, I don't know, there's all the things, but as you say, it's so experiential when you are the one, you use your imagination, you see these things coming up.
Yes. Yeah. And from my perspective, I'm from the Netherlands. We're very rational, cerebral people. So even when I started doing this work, I sometimes would be thinking the same thing. Well, this is a great inner journey, but is it all true? Is this an actual experience? So I've had quite a bit of sessions where people would live lives of historical people, and they would come up with details that they couldn't have known about.
Oh, cool.
Or they would tell me about like a wedding ceremony or different like dishware utensils that they used to have food of a certain place on the planet in a different time. And then when you do the research, it matches. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and they just pulled it out of their ass, just like you just were in the session. Like, I don't know why I'm saying that I'm racing bicycles, but it's the same for them.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So you meet the Dolores Cannon work, you hear what's happening there. You're now inwardly on fire. You feel you've got your passion, and then you begin to pursue the work. You take a course. What's your next steps?
So yeah, I took the class and then started practicing. And you know, at the time when I started, this is back in 2006, Dolores Cannon wasn't a household name like she is now. So my work started very gradual. I would work on friends, the people that were already into this stuff, and then gradually there was more and more interest. And so I was still working other jobs, doing my own inner healing because it was still ongoing. And at one point it switched over to where I could do this. You know, I moved to the States and then I started doing this full time.
So you were practicing in the Netherlands then?
I was. This is where I started in 2006, and then I moved here in 2007. And then my practice started building slowly. I took the level 2 course in 2009 and then level 3 in 2016. And so, yeah, now my practice is up and running. And I see people every day with, and I just got goosebumps again when you were starting to describe, you know, when I said, look at your hands. This is something, it's so exciting for me every day. I never know what's going to come in. I don't tell people what to go see or where to go look. I just leave it up to your higher self. And then I never know if we're going to look at, you know, hands with a different skin tone or bigger, smaller, different gender, or, you know, hands that are maybe part of a light body. There is no physical shape or form. Or some kind of alien hand. People would say like, oh, I have really long fingers and I can feel. And there's 3 of them. Stuff like that. It can be anything. So super excited for me. Or, you know, sometimes I'm like thrown off and there's something that will come in and I have no frame of reference for it. And then, you know, it does an appeal on me to like really try to figure out questions of what is this, what we're dealing with, and how do we navigate this. I love it. Yeah, I'm a Gemini. I'd love exploring these realms. And, and like I said, like I was always looking for tangible proof of these different mystical realms, and I found that I get it doing this work because it gives me, it's like I'm getting to report from these different realms.
So I have started taking some hypnotherapy courses, and I've had 2 friends now that I said, hey, let's do a hypnotherapy practice session. There's a certain level of understanding and how to do an induction that I've learned, and so let's do it. So one friend, I said, look, it was a lady, I said, look down at your hands and tell me what you see. And she said, oh, I have orange skin. And my fingers are like, they look like they're taped together. I think there's 3 or 4 different individual digits. And that was fascinating. And then, you know, there's lots of things that happened there. The other friend, I said, look down and look at your fingers, and they were a humanoid finger, but it was a different skin color. And then she said, I said, look up and tell me about the sky, because I said, do you think you're on Earth or do you think you're on a? She goes, I'm on a different planet. And I said, what's the sky look like? She said, it's a red sky. And I said, what is the name of your planet? And she goes, oh, I don't remember the exact, she goes, it's Naruku, or it's something like that. And she said, I teach children our language. And I go, can you give me an example? And she goes, oh, like, this is how you say hello in our language, it's Nasim. And I go, oh, Nasim? She goes, no. She corrects me, it's Na'asim.
Wow. Amazing.
So she knew, she had such a presence of mind that in this other experience she had, she knew to correct me.
Yes.
Na'asim. Oh, it's not Nasim, it's Na'asim. And later her and I were listening back to this, and she's like, oh my God.
Yes.
Where did that come from?
Yes.
And it's such a multi-dimensional experience. We are here in this human Earth 3D body, but we've done other things.
Yes, for sure.
Now, you get a lot of contact with the ET stuff, and I know that's a huge part of your work. Please share.
I always, when I hear these experiences, I try to compare them to, oh, it's the red sky people, or it's the purple sky people, or it's the orange skin people, or I try to see, you know, whenever I get another client and they start telling me about it, I try to match it up with a place that I might have heard about before. And, you know, it's not often that happens because there is such a variety of life out there. It's just teeming with life on all kinds of different levels. But yeah, they are my favorites because
As a Gemini, I imagine you probably get bored easy. So I don't want to hear about weight loss or smoking. Okay, past lives, I'm kind of getting bored with those. Ooh, tell me about the extraterrestrials.
Because I think it appeals to a part of me that I'm bringing into this life as well. I think the architecture of us as human beings, we are composites of cherry-picked experience from different realms and different places we've been. And I think we kind of cherry-picked them to do life on the planet now. So for some of us, and I think for a lot of us right now, a lot of the experiences that we're pulling in purposely into this lifetime is knowledge from a different place that is at a higher frequency and where there's more of a loving, heart-centered understanding towards life. And we're learning to uncover that within us. And as we do that, and we uncloset these parts of ourselves, become more visible, and we start to implement life or live life based on those values, this ripples out. And as we transform the cruelty and the brutality of the status quo thinking that's been on this planet for so long within ourselves, and we become visible markers of this expansiveness and this more love, this ripples out. You're being seen and visible as a potential, as an option that doesn't have to do life within the limited confines of the density that have been brought to us, that we've been raised as. So whenever we tap into those experiences, they're always about places that are more expansive, that have already gone through the shift that's happening on planet Earth right now, and where it's just normal to be in the heart and to connect with each other from the heart and to live in a system that is based on love and compassion, and that is based on caring for each other. And it's just a given. There is no having to negotiate any of that. It's just, no, we do not want anybody to get hurt. We do not exploit life. We do not kill other people. We do not kill animals. We do not exploit the planets. This is a given. So what are the options on how to do life when that is a given? And so I think a lot of us now, we're becoming aware of those parts of us and learning to validate them in the face of all the messages that we shouldn't do those things. And it's purposeful. It is helping to raise the frequency of consciousness on the planet, to lighten the harmonics of human consciousness to where this love and this caring and this compassion can be the accepted norm, to where the cruelty and the brutality and the exploitation that's happening becomes a thing of the past.
Yeah. You really have a resonance of compassion. You really have a resonance of trying to help people on their journey raise their level of consciousness. And
Yes.
that's evident in your work. I have heard people say that the higher, more advanced souls will say, okay, I need a harder journey. This time I don't want to come back in any societal norms. And so I might come back as a genderqueer individual or a gay individual or somebody that has to overcome obstacles, let alone just the whole fucking human journey that we have to do. I'm gonna up the ante. And then you share your story with me and I'm like, oh, you decided you wanted to have a bunch of things to overcome on your journey.
Yeah.
You want to have people lash out with their earth mythologies.
Yes.
Whether it's a religious construct or political or a gender bias, whatever those things are.
Yes.
So I find it fascinating that you do spiritual work. You've done a pile of interpersonal work along the way, things that people don't even know about. What are some of the things internally that you've had to work through to get to a point where you go, all right, I think I'm good? Because we all come in with these childhood wounds and stories and stuff. What are some of those things you've had to go through?
I love talking about this, yes, because it is the core of the work that I do. At QHHT, the method I practice, lends itself really great to overcoming what we call issues. So the ones that I have language for that are known issues on the planet are gender and sexuality, and so I'm gay and genderqueer, and but also, being highly sensitive. We have this language for these aspects of ourselves that speaks of deviancy, where there is a norm that we think it's normal and this is the standard and everything, and then we have words or labels for deviancy, being
Labels.
gay or being sensitive,
Yeah.
or being queer. It so speaks of different, and I'm not saying queer like I'm judging it. It's just more like we still have language for otherness. And it's otherness that is seen as less than, as not the norm, as deviant. So
I was given the religious narrative of it was Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and I was told it's bad.
Yes. Yeah. Gay people, genderqueer people have been around since the dawn of times.
Yes.
They're just as much as expressions of God as anything else that we take issue with.
Yeah.
Autism or dyslexia or ADHD, they're all pathologizing terms for a unique existence on this planet, very, very purposeful. It's not wrong, it's not needing to be fixed, it needs to be loved, by all of us and the people themselves. So for me, the biggest boulders that I've had to transform within myself have been along the lines of gender. I'm in a man's body, I'm completely comfortable being a man. But for a long time, I thought that I was the wrong kind of man. I thought that maybe I was a woman in a man's body because I could not vibe with the limited sense of masculinity that I saw around me everywhere, the limited binary. Like I grew up in a small town and I couldn't play with little boys because I didn't understand why what they did was fun. They were playing with toy guns and wooden swords and playing cowboys and Indians, and whenever I tried to do it, I felt very uncomfortable and awkward. I played with little girls, learned how to play hopscotch and jump rope, learned how to sew little quilted sleeping bags for my stuffed animals, build doll houses. Loved it, but I was the only freak boy in the village. So learned to judge myself for being a boy physically, but not knowing how to act like a boy, acting more like a girl.
Did you have a sense of wrongness or anything? And
of course, yes, because this world does not accommodate any weirdness or differences at all. Even if you're not around parents, like my parents are the sweetest people, they did not judge any of that, but they were just part of the normal that limits, that limits life to a very tight, narrow standard of what is modeled as proper or normal,
Did your dad give you like a baseball mitt for a birthday?
Not at all. No, not at all. They let me do whatever I wanted to do.
That's beautiful.
But, looking out at the billboards, the commercials, other people, it was very, very clear that who I was. My parents, they weren't the kind that would give me a beating because of religious, fucked upness. They were very loving, but they were unable to really help me trust myself because they weren't taught to do that for themselves. They were products of their environment, and and were very compassionate people, but they weren't able to say, well, fuck that culture, fuck all that binary bullshit. We're here to do you. Let's explore who you are. This is good. So I learned to judge myself for a long time until in my 40s. So this gender journey was a big one, but also to trust feelings and to trust emotions.
That's good.
The inner world and the experiences that we have, that they should be trusted and that they are very purposeful and accurate signals of our emotional guidance system, giving us information about what's happening in our day-to-day experience. We do not hang on to trusting this part of ourselves. Like all of our Western society that I know of, we learn to focus on thinking, on strategic thinking, on being in the mind, and to be strategic and figure things out and plan it and avoid disaster and to plan for disaster and do all those things. We lose contact with what's in the heart, and we lose the doorway into knowing who we are. And so when I learned to trust my feelings, that was a big shift in gaining my worthiness back, to know that, well, if I were to listen to these feelings that happen inside of me about what is wrong to me and what is right to me, what feels good and what feels awkward, and I start to navigate my life based on that, my worthiness started to come in, and I started to trust myself as a unique person on the planet that did no longer have to bend down to or fit into all the limited binaries or social constructs that we find here. And it's freeing and it's beautiful. When we get to find out who we are, this is a beautiful thing, because when you get to know yourself, you know that you are God. Because that's what we all are. You know,
That's it.
I'm a very unique expression of source or God or universe, and so are you.
Yep.
And so is the next person, and so is the tree, and so are the animals, and so is everything that we see and that we do not see.
Yep.
When we become in compassionate relationship with ourselves, when we learn to forgive and to start to love who we are past the confines of what our society dictates us to be, we become more compassionate towards ourselves, and by default, we become more compassionate towards other people and life as a whole,
Yeah.
to where we become inoculated against any systems or any brutality or cruelty that we now see as completely normal.
Yeah.
You know, it's normal to live in a society where the riches that we have gained have gone over the backs of slaves or the third world countries or multinationals that perpetuate the cruelty and exploitation and killing off and murdering of people and animals and the planet, to where it becomes an affront to what feels right to you. Like, I became vegan when I started to love more of myself, because as I felt myself more, I could feel my cat more, and I could feel the animals more, down to the bugs and the flies and the rats that sometimes, you know, come over in this house because there's a dumpster right next door. You know, I don't want to harm myself as a divine being, nor do I want any other divine beings on the planet. So that's why I think I find such fulfillment in my work, because it not only validates who I am, and I help other people to, you know, turn their inner pilot light of magnificence into a blaze, or if they don't have the pilot light on, I get to help them turn it on. I always say, like, I get to midwife people into their authenticity through the work that I do, and I think it's beautiful.
That's awesome. On Amazon Prime, there's a 2012 conference that Dolores Cannon was speaking at. I think it's called Transformation 2012. You know, so you can look for that if you got Amazon Prime. It's a great video. And as she did, she sat in a chair and talked and just captivated the audience. And she says, Earth is I think she says, the hardest planet in the universe. I always have a question when somebody says, this is the most or whatever, but she said it's one of the hardest planets in the universe. And she says it's very dense. It's very dense material. And some people are like, you know, I know of someone I have heard that said he had a session where somebody asked him, why did you come to Earth? Why Earth? It's such a hard place to come. But Dolores says, when you go through Earth school, you got to do the whole thing. You got to start at the beginning, and you got to go until you've completed it. And she said, you come in as air, then you go through rocks and minerals, then you go to the plant kingdom, and then you can graduate to the animal kingdom, and you go through all of that. And then when you're done with that, now you're in the human kingdom, and you've got to do all the religions, the genders, all of the different scenarios throughout however the time process works. And I know time is a construct, and if it's a flat circle, and, you know, wherever we land on that. But I find it fascinating that when we come here to the earth realm, it's intended that our soul has a multiple journey of multiple experiences. And she says if you spend too much time in one gendered body, then you're like, better switch to have the other experience. And she says sometimes that's why people feel like, I don't belong in this body. Maybe they've been in a different gendered body. And, you know, I just think those things are fascinating. Yeah. And so I guess that was just something new to me when I'm like, oh. So fast forward to one of those practice sessions I was doing through this hypnotherapy training. The one person I was asking, I said, well, she says, I just feel light. I see myself, and I'm not really an entity. I'm just kind of there. I go, do you feel like you're the air? She goes, yeah, I feel like I'm just air. And I went, Dolores, it's like ding, 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 ding. It's right there. Have you had experiences where people have been a mineral or a rock or an animal? Give me some of the context that you've encountered.
So yeah, I did. I don't want to comment on what you just said, because I'll get into that for a bit. But yeah,
feel free.
I had people. I remember there's one session that I did where somebody was a boulder that was wedged in between two rocks as a lifetime.
Oh no.
A group regression I did. Somebody was a tree. I remember a session where somebody started to, that moment where I asked, well, look down at your feet. What do you look like? Oh, they're kind of weird and hairy and black. And, oh, I have a lot of legs. And they were a spider.
Oh.
And they described the world from, from the ground. They would see the dirt and then the, what do you call it? Like the blades of grass as giant trees around them because they were looking at it from the perspective of a spider.
Yeah.
But air, I don't remember if that was a session that I had or that I read in Dolores's books, but even past that, energy beings that are in charge of creating worlds or
now that's
seeding
a whole
them.
different level.
Yes. And,
wow.
And so what Dolores describes in her book, that in every book she describes in her mind, just as she starts to think that she's understood it all, how it all works, her mind gets expanded. And I wanted to comment on that we do have to go through all the things. I don't think it works that way for everyone, every soul. I
agree.
Yeah. So I think we as human beings, we try to quantify.
Yes.
But I don't think it's quantifiable.
Yes.
There is this other, there's different rules to how things work and we don't understand them. We cannot quantify them. So I think that, yes, for some of us, we do that as a journey. We go through all of these experiences. Others, they just they're like shooting through the galaxy and it's like, I'm going to dip into Earth and, tweak some stuff around and then I'm going to take off again.
Yep.
Or they're part of an alien race and, they have been involved with the genetic development of human beings on the planet and, you've amassed enough wisdom to go there in a human body and to forget kind of, and then to be on the ground and to make some changes in that sense, energetically. Yeah. So I think there's that experience, but then it doesn't have to be like that. There's tons of other experiences that I've experienced in sessions. And then, of course, by default, then I will have to accept that there's experiences that I have not experienced in my session.
Yeah.
So I think
and I love that because I hate when you get into a dogmatic perspective. This is exactly how the spirit world is. I'm like, okay, well, hold on.
Yeah.
In Newton's work, he's like, it works exactly like this. I'm like, okay, I'm sure there's exceptions to the rules, So I love that you give presence to that. Dolores is like, once you start, you got to go all the way through. I'm like, okay, but now it's like that's the only way, and I don't think that's the way. I think it's all creativity.
Yeah, I think as she went through expanding her mind, this continues for all of us practitioners where new concepts and new ways of being and other options are constantly being experienced through the different sessions. A lot of the younger people that are on the planet right now, they haven't done Earth lives. They just came in straight from Source or some higher dimensional plane to fuck things up over here, to bust the system, and they don't have to go through all of those experiences. I remember this one beautiful session where, I asked her, "Who are you? What are you?" She said, "I'm just Source. I'm a part of Source." And what's happening now? There is this sound that I'm hearing, and it's the sound of. This is how we know that atomic bombs are exploding on planet Earth, and it turns our attention to it, and it's like, oh God, the kids found the matches, we better do something.
Yes.
What's happening over there?
I've heard that.
Yes. And so I think she went into a lifetime, I don't know if I'm blending two sessions, but
don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Yes, of something that was maybe like a flower or a plant or maybe a tree or something, and then there was a lifetime as a horse in the 1800s, I think it was in the States, being put in front of a carriage, and the only connection she had as a horse was with a child that could see her as a being that deserved attention and acknowledgement, and then the next life was being here on the planet now. And when I speak about next, as you know, there is no such thing as time, but she accessed these different experiences as a soul to pull the information in, to kind of get a working knowledge of how life is done on the planet, to get a crash course, being in a physical body. Oh, as a horse, she learned what it was like to have emotions, or a beginning of it. So it wouldn't be so difficult for her to come straight out of Source into this woman body right now to do the work that she's here to do right now. So, but that is an example of people that don't go through the whole, mineral, air, and then animals, and then human beings. Yeah. And so Also, the knowledge from Hinduism or Buddhism, I don't know which one it is, of you know, don't do the wrong thing or you're going to come back as an animal, or you know, you do the animal realm first and then you do a human realm. I don't believe any of it.
Anything that has to do with punishment, if you do it wrong, this bad thing, I'm like, come on, stop it. Those are earth mythologies.
Yes. And also, you can choose to have part of your soul come in as your animal. This is a session experience that I had. That in the beginning of life, you know, the density on the planet is too dense for all of the soul's information and all of the energy to come in all at once. So you come in with a little bit of it. And then life starts to happen. You learn to expand a bit. And then the harmonics are changing right now. And then this one session I remember, this lady was told, you're going to get a dog, and this dog will contain part of your energy, your soul's energy. This is to expand your energy on the planet. It wasn't able to come in all at once at the beginning because of the density and the place where you were. But now, through this animal, a part of the soul gets delivered to you. So that is not punishment. That is just a beautiful way for life to work itself out, for life doing what it needs to do to make the things happen. And so it doesn't go by any categories or labels, or it's either this or that or quantifiable things. It just figures it out. It's very graceful. Yeah. And it just gives more validity to the beautiful diversity and the differences that we're all here to express. That they're really to try and fit yourself in, or to let other people tell you about how you should be as a person. It is not, it's going against how life moves naturally.
Yep. Yeah. I love that. If this is a part of source, a part of the universal godness of everything, well, how can it experience itself by new creative things? Whether it's human beings or the construct of multidimensional, interdimensional things that we can't even understand. There's just so many fascinating things possible. And when you get the construct that it's a creative expression, and it's not like you're going to pass or fail, you know, and that's the one thing I don't like about life as a school. Well, it's not a school where you're going to get it wrong and then something bad. It's a school in the fact that, how else do we say it? You're going to learn something. Where do you learn? Well, you learn in school. So it's a nice earth mythology to say this is an earth school. But I don't feel like it's a, well, you didn't do good enough, you got to go back. I don't think it's like that.
Yes.
I think it's that matter of creativity, you know?
Yeah, I think that is sort of wrapping the old religious doctrine into a pretty new age
instead
packaging.
of heaven and hell, we'll just say you have to go back and have another life over, you know?
Right.
It's still the same punishment though.
Yeah, no, it's I don't believe it's like that at all.
Yeah.
Because that's not loving and compassionate, and it's not what I hear when people go through the life reviews, like, oh, that was interesting. Well, didn't quite that part of it. What can I do next? You like figure that part out.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I'm so bad, I was a bad girl, or whatever it was. You know, I remember going through an experience where it was in a past life where I was in the north of France as a guy, and I was brought up as an orphan, and I learned to get ahead in life by kind of having sharp elbows.
Oh.
You know, so I was kind of a dick. And I didn't stop being a dick until I was an adult. I married this woman that I bullied terribly, and I died of a heart attack.
Wow.
Then when I was in the afterlife experience, looking back at the life, there was no judgment about this experience at all. In fact, my soul realized that I had been split off in both the asshole and in the woman as well. And my soul was like, oh, this was great. I got to do these experiences all at once. I got to be the asshole and I got to be the bullied. Check, check, done, moving on to the next thing. There was no judgment about, oh, what an asshole I was, or, oh, the poor woman, you know. So it's all just experience to expand. And so there is no, from my perspective, as far as I know, there is no, like, punishment, or you got to go back, or even this notion now about moving into 5D and that we all got to catch the boat or else, you know, we will miss it. No, it's the same thing.
It's another punishment.
Yes, because what it does, it puts people... I mean, there's truth to it. There is this thing that's going to happen that is taking place right now where we're all up-leveling, but it's not like we got to be good boys and girls with this new sets of rules because or else we will miss the boat. No. It's about loving who you are. It's through the love that you birth 5D within yourself, I think. Yeah. So there's no such thing as an external marker for are you being a good boy or a bad boy? You know, whatever kind of packaging you want to give to that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
And the the whole construct of we all have to get to a place or else, you know, I don't enjoy that. You know, we're not going to get there if we're under this political system, and so
Yes.
you know, we've got to try to you know, stand up for the truth, you know, whatever that would be. Well, that's going back into the religious mindset that I have to serve an outside God, and I have to somehow make sure that you believe what I believe, because then you'll be okay.
Yes.
You know, I was taught to proselytize my belief system.
Yes.
And I see that even in whether it's the cancel culture or the politics, different nations, you know, you have to believe what I believe. And I'm like, all right, there's got to be a room for different stages of growth and development. A 2-year-old shouldn't be held to the same standard as a 40-year-old. There's definitely a different life experience there. How do you handle that?
Well, I got triggered like anybody else. So I definitely, I mean, I seek out experiences that I can find more compassion in, but I mean, in the end, I know that we're all here to love it all of it.
Yeah.
And that anything that triggers us is a part of ourselves that has yet to be loved. So I certainly have had my triggers, you know, through the political climate here in the United States. And I know in the end, it's all it's the viewing screen for me to see what I have yet to love. Like, I mean, it's difficult, you know. I can't say that I'm perfect, you know, if I know it all.
Well,
but
that leads me to the question of, if you know that we're here for experience, life's a game, but yet you still get pissed off when somebody says you got to do this thing and or else. You're like,
Yeah.
and then, how do you deal with that? That 3D, you still got to live in the 3D. You got to pay
Yes.
your bills. You got to pay taxes. You're like, how much are they taking?
Yeah. I mean, when people tell me to do stuff, then I try to. I believe that as long as I get triggered into an emotional upset, there's a sense of self-judgment there. So it is grist for my mill, where I'm learning when somebody would do that to me and I get to, you know, then it is for me to see what part of me is not loved yet. You know, even if I'm being cut off in traffic and I have an emotional response to it, or, you know, or some asshole, you know, like my gender journey is a good example. So when I learned to judge that part of myself, I would get called names in school. I would be the fag, the sissy, I would get slapped in my face, locker room situations, very difficult for me. Up until my 40s, I was very uncomfortable to be around straight guys. If the group of them were together and they would do, say, like I'm stereotyping now, like talk about boobs and booze in the game, you know, then I would be feeling very uncomfortable because I didn't enjoy those conversations and I didn't know anything about it. And instead of like being myself with them and just adding to the conversation for my own, what I like to talk about, I would make myself small and not seen. Scared that I was of being looked at as the weird one, the freak, the idiot, or like the wrong one.
Socially, we love to fit in, so that makes sense dynamically.
Based on self-judgment, yes. And so I would get these experiences where I would feel this inner sense of uncomfortability, where I would feel the inner rejection through these external markers of being called names. When I embraced that part of myself, all these triggers fell away. There was no more catalyst there for me. So, and instead, more of the sparkle ponies of who I got to know myself as would start to show up.
Sparkle ponies,
Yes.
I love it.
So this is how I try to navigate this, you know, sometimes better than other times, to where if I'm in a place of emotional upset through whatever happens, this is not about that, it's about this. And so what is being triggered here that causes me to be so upset, that causes me to lose my equanimity and to go out of joy?
Yeah.
And so that's what I try to work on, to find out what is still needing to be heard and seen, what is upset, and then to cater to that, to see what kind of part of me is asking for attention. And so, because I know that when I embrace that part, when I get to know it, and when I accommodate it and create external conditions that are honoring of it, then these triggers will fall away. And I can just live in my magical bubble, more and more of it, of seeing my inner beauty, but on the outside, instead of all the limitations that I still experience on the inside. That is the thinking behind it, and I have varying levels of success of dealing, walking that path, going through the 3D journey.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I get caught into that 3D journey often.
So do I.
But I think, there's certain things I have no control, I have no influence over. There's things in different countries I'm like, I can't be angry or upset. If I watch the news, I will always have a reason to be upset. Somewhere something's going wrong. I'm a scuba diver. I love diving. When I dive and I see plastics in the ocean, it makes me furious.
Yes.
Then when I see somebody offer, oh, would you like a bottle of water? I'm like, no, I have a hydro flask. And then I'm like, oh, I'm self-righteous. Aren't I special? I'm the good boy. And then I'm like, oh, I'm just judging them. So I have to just be in a space of, them queers, they're ruining the planet. Them gay people. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I used to think that way years ago because I was given that narrative. Okay, so they're just at a place where I've already kind of been through something and, on the journey, not that I'm better or more advanced, but I kind of already gone through those things. So I just have to let it go. And I go, I'm here for the experience. I'm here to, as ayahuasca taught me, I'm here to enjoy the ride. It's the biggest lesson I've ever learned is, why are you here? You're supposed to enjoy your life. Are you enjoying it? No, I'm stressed out. Well, then find the space where you can enjoy it and live in that vibration. Right. And if you get caught up in the politics of the crazy people and caught up in the, just whatever the issues are, the world's got enough problems. And I just think those are games that people get to play. And they're like, oh, I'm going to be the warrior for this cause. And, I want you to, can you donate to my cause? I'm like, oh, that's your cause. It's not my cause. Yes. So that's a game you get to play. I'm playing the what happens when we die game, and am I going to go to hell? Or, I have to unravel. That's the game I'm playing. The white heterosexual male game that, oh, am I persecuted? And people are like, no, you have all these giftings and abilities. Oh, okay, well, how come I'm not doing this and that? So that's the game I get to play. And, my stresses are my stresses. You might look at me and go, that's so stupid. Why would you be afraid of that thing? And then I might look at you and go, well, that's so dumb. We're able to play the game according to the rules we want. And I think the more we realize it's just an experience, you can breathe a little easier. And while we're still going to get triggered and caught up, I think you get to the point where you can just recognize, oh, look, Dave's getting caught up in this thing. And you can kind of be the outside observer. And I think that's part of the process of just kind of, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. So as you're playing your game, you're getting caught into triggers.
Sure. You're
allowing them to move through, and I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I'm as graceful about it as I make it sound. Maybe like I do get very, some YouTube thing will pull my attention. Like, fuck, what's hope? It gets me upset, like against all the limitations and the rigidity and all the
like comments on your channel or something, or
no. Like I'm just like the feed, whatever it is, the algorithm. Okay. Yeah. So whenever I see, people that are caught up in againstness of it should be this way, it should be that way, I'm on board. I get on board with that because I do feel like I want more compassion. I want other people and difference in the variety and diversity. I want it to be seen and be out there, but it doesn't help me to get angry about it. Yeah. It doesn't help my personal experience in that moment. What helps me is to uncloset myself as much as I can, and to be more of a visible marker for somebody who is flying their freak flag and allows other people to do the same thing. Because I think the more we accept the parts of us that have been judged so much, like you said in the beginning, somebody that comes in here with a different gender or a different sexuality or a different race experience or a different sexuality, did I say that already? These are our vehicles for empowerment. It is these parts, when we learn to love and embrace them completely in the face of whatever limited assholeness is out there. This is what breaks the system of the limitations. To me, this is the way that I go about it. So that is what I try to do for myself, and this is what I try to do with the people that I work with. When they become aware of their own sparkle poniness and their own uniqueness, they can stop judging others for walking their path and being in their journey, and to start to attune to want to be around, to want to be inside of systems and cultures that accommodate that, instead of cultures that keep squishing it down.
Yeah. There's a few things that you have experienced with your hypnotherapy sessions that really give a lot of insight into the extraterrestrial engagement that people have had and higher consciousness and souls that have come here. What are some anecdotal stories that you can share about people that have found themselves on spaceships or different scan, or some light being that's decided to come here and met their, Arcturian family, or, can you sense kind of somebody's starseed beingness? Give me some presence.
It started to come. Yeah, it started to come. Like, I check for that stuff now when I walk through the door. It's really funny because I get to, when people around the corner, they come into my office, there's an impression that happens, and it's a feeling impression, and sometimes it tells me about that part of people, and then oftentimes that's what I experience. And in a session, like, it's almost like I place bets with myself, like, is this where we're going to go? And then yes, I kind of like, a big part of myself that I identify with is Pleiadian energy. It kind of fits my generation.
Cool.
And there's other parts to it as well, but I always recognize it. I mean, I can say always because I don't know, but a lot of times when I see a person sitting across from me and to me it feels like blue or purple.
Ooh, you can feel it.
Yes, and then the session evolves like that, where I get to experience that. So yeah, I've had people going to Pleiadian lifetimes. Andromedan has been coming in quite a bit. Arcturian as well. And then plenty that there's no name for it. Like last week, a woman went to a planet that was called Edon. Can't remember. Or what's been happening a lot, that people go to, they describe being part of this community that is on this giant spaceship or space world it's a ship. And I seem to be working with like galactic botanists or horticulturalists, where they're in charge of or busy with taking care and disseminating flora and fauna on more or less 3D planets around the galaxy. There's one clip on my YouTube channel where a woman goes into a live where she is in charge of plants, and it's specifically about cannabis. That cannabis galactically is in the solar system or even beyond, is known as a plant as like a terraformer. It's not only good for the benefits that we experience, the medicinal aspects of it, but it's also really good in creating fertile soil or changing soil. That's what it said. So she, as another being, was born as an alien being, decided to come into this human body now. She was born through human means, but there's plenty of walk-ins that are happening as well, which is another concept, where an other soul joins or takes the place of the soul, or joins it. That's also possible when the body is already formed, when they're in their early years, or even later on as well. But I'm going off on a tangent. So yeah, a lot of these beings that I work with, they are in charge of the flora and the fauna of different planets, and they study it or preserve it or disseminate it as life. They seed it as life on different planets.
Wow.
And then lately, what's been coming in is beings that, they have a certain physical description. It varies, where they find themselves at an assembly of the Galactic Federation. It's like, it's kind of like a court or an assembly where the powers that be of the universe, as extensions of source and different expressions of it, insectoids, reptoids, humanoids, all kinds of different beings. And yes, reptoids are not just the bad guys, or there's all kinds of expression. There's another thing that we can go into, but
so like the reptilians are always given as the enemy or some sort of a negative dark entity, but yet you're saying that they can be just like humans can be a nice one or a not nice one.
Yes, they can. A big part of them seems to be the shit stirrers of the galaxy, but not all of them. I've worked with some reptoids that they were either renegades from the draconian system, or they were just reptoids, a racial expression of the reptoids that were more advanced and more loving and more compassionate. So the same that we do on planet Earth, it's the Muslims, it's the gays, it's the black people, you know. That's,
Sure.
you know, you can't just...
Hold it.
So the xenophobia that we have on this planet, don't extend it into the galactic realms when you're working with those beings, because it doesn't work that way. Yeah, from my perspective. Yeah.
So what are some of the messages of unity that you hear in these sessions, like consciousness, like the work that people have come to do? You know, what are some of the things that you're finding that there's some common themes that you're hearing between sessions from different people?
The common themes are that we are in a place of spiritual awakening right now, to not get caught up in judgment as much as you can of it, that it is kind of a cleansing that we're going through right now. Yeah, and there seems to be different timelines regarding where that goes. Sometimes I hear we're going to go right down to the wire, and then other times it's more loving or easier, less challenging, but it seems to be switching around quite a bit. But yeah, that we're all here despite any of that stuff taking place. We came here to have front row seats to this and to be part of it, very much so. And that it is about unity, that we're all connected and it's all love. And when people talk about the battle between the light and the dark, it's all God in the end.
Oh, I love that. It's just the same sphere.
Yes.
There's different polarities of it.
So if there wasn't anything negative or challenging, we would just be coming out of our mother's wombs and just like lay around and watch Netflix all day. I don't know, like.
So I had an ayahuasca ceremony where I go, well, how come it's so hard? She goes, because if it were too easy, you'd think it was Candyland and you wouldn't believe it was real.
Yes, and you wouldn't do anything. You wouldn't get to know yourself in
like weightlifting to build muscles, you got to have some resistance.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so it's just different parts of the same thing. And so, you know, also you could translate this into the political climate. You know, we're all here to do God as the role that we're here for, to provide the opposition, to get to know for each of us to get to know ourselves better.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the messages of unity, that it's, it's a way more expansive worldview or galactic view or life view that goes beyond any of the limitations and the judgment, that it's all, that our souls are all built of the same stuff, and that we're just splitting off into these different experiences to have the experiences to find out what it's like to get to know ourselves and doing these things.
Yeah. What's kind of the wrap-up message that you would have for people who are viewing and listening to this material? What's kind of the message that you would want someone to take from all of the sessions you've experienced and had yourself, and the personal work and the kind of your understanding of the soul and the universe? What are some things you want people to know?
I would like people to be willing to suspend their attachment to the normal that they've been taught as something that does you any justice, and to then have the willingness to trust the feelings that are there, that you might have, that speak of who you are. You know, not just the positive ones, but also feeling the annoyance or the anger or the
feeling the annoyance of my audio being compromised by helicopters and airplanes. But hey, we're outdoors. Continue.
Feeling the annoyance and the anger as well, and to take them to trust these feelings as this is your inner self speaking up about things. Doesn't mean that you have to go lash out or anything. It means that if you feel angry because you're in a job that doesn't feel good, it's like you're wearing a shoe that doesn't fit your feet. It's like those horrible work pumps that you have to wear at the bank. You work at the bank, this doesn't feel good, doesn't look good, but you have to do it because you think you have to be in this job. To start trusting yourself.
Yeah.
And to follow the joy. The joy is the easiest way to start relating back to yourself. Is to find yourself. And it's not the joys that we might have been taught or we might have experienced as joys when we get rewarded for doing the things that we're supposed to be doing when you are a good boy or a good girl, but the joys just for fuck's sake. The joys where all of your sensory input just informs you, just fucking feels great. Whether it is sitting here in the garden or going into the mountains or nature or being with animals or meditating or drawing, singing, dancing, or going monster truck driving or whatever it is that makes your heart sing. Yeah. Just because, for fuck's sake. So to start trusting that is what I would want you to take away, because these are the breadcrumbs that if you follow them and trust them, they will take you into a larger experience, an embodied experience of who you are, and who you are is God. So that's what I want for myself, and that is what I want for you, and this is what I want for the planet. All these beings that are waking up to their divinity.
It's like popcorn. I've heard that many people have seen this little lights starting to light up.
This is what we're doing.
Have you had any sessions where Dolores has come through, channeled either through yourself or through the other person?
Sure, to other people.
Because to me, Michael Newton and Dolores Cannon are two of the pillars of the spiritual work in the last 40 years. They started in the late 1960s, early 70s, and then they were both like, "Whoa, we're learning new things." And I know Dolores somebody had a past life experience. She's like, "This is incredible," and same with Newton. That's his, this can't be, And now we're like, duh, But have you had any messages? Because I know she passed. Was it 2016?
14. Yeah.
She passed in 2014. I'm sure that I've seen YouTube videos where like, I channel Dolores Cannon all the time. I'm like, okay, are you monetizing off of this? I don't know.
Right.
But have you had any experiences?
Yeah, but nothing like big. It was more like, I remember like personal, like how such a great job I'm doing, So
an attaboy for you.
Yeah, attaboy. Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
that was a gold star.
Yeah, that was fun.
That made you feel good, though.
Of course.
If it was an unsolicited, somebody told you something.
Yes, I mean it was always surprising, and then.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah. So then, what else?
Oh wait, I don't want to gloss over that. So you're telling me in hypnotherapy, somebody said, "Give me a little bit more context."
I can't remember specifics, but it would be like. Towards the end of the session, probably it would be, because then we asked, like, are there any more messages for the client? And sometimes it happens, yes, for the client, and there's something for you as well. And then that might have that
something like that. Oh, that's so beautiful.
And then there's one session I remember where somebody started to. I mean, this was so expensive. This session. Somebody was in a different place, different dimension, and they said, "Oh, Dolores is here too, and this is what she looks like now, completely different being." And there were messages there as well, but I forgot what they are.
Yeah. So she doesn't look like an 83-year-old woman. She's just got a light body, and she's an advanced soul.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. I liked to end the episode with, if there was one thing you want people to take away from today, it would be this thing. Now, you shared a beautiful thing already. I don't know if it's going to be similar to that, but if there's one tidbit you want people to know, what would that be? That
we're all unique expressions of Source, and consider starting to treat yourself and others like that.
Beautiful. How do people get a hold of you? What are some places that they can go to find you online? I know you've got a robust presence.
So the best way is Instagram, to find me there, because you can DM me, and all my other contact information is there. So it is my first name, Jeroen, and then is love. Jeroen is love, my information. You can find me there, or my website, Jeroen QHHT, and Jeroen is spelled Jeroen, QHHT.com. those are the best ways.
Do you do non-in-person sessions, or do you just do in-person sessions?
In person, yeah. This QHHT, if you say that you're doing QHHT, is done in person only. However, I do group sessions that are virtual.
So if there's someone in a different state or city or country, they have to schedule time to come to LA to be with you in person.
Or find somebody locally. Yeah. So there is QHHT official. They can find a local practitioner. If this, what I just talked about, what we talked about is interesting, they can find somebody locally. But if you want to work with me, come to LA or join one of my virtual groups. I get people from all over the world.
Beautiful. Yeah. Good. Well, I love your work. I love you. You're a dear friend of mine, and I've enjoyed getting to know you over the last year and a half. And you have made my life better just through who you are. You didn't even have to do anything. Just your beingness has made my life better. So
and thank you as well. You are part of healing my my distance towards straight guys.
Sure.
Yeah. To see other men that are accessing more tender and sensitive parts to themselves and are willing to go this inner journey is hugely important and wonderful and healing for me to see.
I had a dear friend of mine tell me I was the gayest straight guy he knew. I'm like, okay, thanks. I said, I was given a narrative of right and wrong and good and bad and those people, and then I found out those are just Earth mythologies. We're all just here. We're all just doing our thing. We're all just making stuff up. And when I see somebody full of love and light and beauty, it's undeniable.
Yes.
So, to you, my friend, I say namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here on Exploring the Human Journey. You can find us as a video on YouTube or listen to us as a podcast. You can also join in the conversation by following us on Facebook and Instagram. For more information, go to the website at exploringthehumanjourney.com.